I think they did nearly 90 magazines, and I mean with Ufologue, as far as I know, nobody else has got those copies. I mean, they do need some restoration, but what an achievement, really, for these people to do all of this.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's so many stories and so many people, and if it isn't preserved, we lose it all.
Well, let's just touch on that, John, because there are various groups who collate and collect UFO sightings. Am I right? There's an organisation called Beams, and there's another one on the net which is just UFOsightings.co.uk. Beams is run by Hillary Porter and her husband, is it Ken?
It's Ken Parsons.
Ken Parsons. Now, I actually collect UFO sightings. I've been collecting them for about 2 years now. So I've got a mass of information. I get about 3 or 4 reports every week. Really, I need to make a proper database of those. Now, do you think there's a need for a national database system? Because there are people such as Gary Heseltine who collect sightings, and there's local groups like Ufologue in different parts of the country.
They were.
There's the Birmingham UFO group. They collect sightings. It all seems to be disjointed. There's no...
Well, it's always been like that. I mean, over the years, there's been many attempts, particularly in the 60s and 70s, when there was a lot of groups. Don't forget, there aren't that many groups about now. And in an ideal world, it would be good to have one database, but my experience shows that there are some people out there that do not want to. They don't want to release those records out for reasons best known to themselves.
That's some researchers who collect sightings. They will hoard them.
Well, it's not their possessions, you see, but it's like they tend to regard a UFO witness as a witness as something personally owned by them, which is wrong. My argument would be that, you see, I never wanted to use in my books Mr. and Mrs. X or somebody with a pseudonym. I think that people, and it's not easy to use the name, but if you haven't got a name, what have you got? And sometimes people say to me, well, look, this is they want confidentiality. They don't want their names used. So I would say, well, please put me in touch with them, and I'll ask them myself. And if they don't want the name to be used, I won't use the name. But 99.9% of people, which is a horrendous statistic to use, but I'd say 99% of people in our books are named, because why the heck not? I mean, they quite often, bizarrely, they have the courage to stand up and say, look, always saying, it's like James Salandin has never said, I saw an alien spaceship. He just told what he saw, and then perhaps it's up to us, but you know, you can only do your best with all of this. But in answer to you, because I tend to go off at tangents, but I agree with what you're saying. There should be a database.
There's that problem, and there's the giggle factor problem, but there's also the problem of, my opinion, obfuscation from the authorities, because it's my view that they get involved in setting up groups or start controlling groups in this field, because there is some kind of conspiracy.
Well, I suppose it would be the way. It would be the way to do it, but especially if you wanted to know who was doing what. But I mean, I don't really, I've no evidence to suggest that. But I do find it very strange that some charming gentlemen from the AFU archives, I think you might have met Class. I can't think of his name. Class Van. Smashing blokes. It's bizarre that they've been cataloguing UFO reports, British and worldwide reports, in their museum, for want of a better word, for many years now, and there is nothing here.
I've not met that person.
Yeah, he's from the AFU.
Right.
Yeah, he stayed him and his friend came over. I tell them, I explain to people, they come over on pillaging expeditions,
right,
which they do, to pick up magazines. But they're the only people that are doing this. Who else is doing it? There's nobody doing it in this country.
Yeah.
I mean, there's an awful lot of stuff. You talked about the internet, but the internet is, it plays its part, and you've mentioned that specific site. You'd be surprised that very, very few sites that I've sent images of the book to and emails have never replied.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's probably too many sites.
Yeah.
And a lot of the information is dubious, isn't it?
Yeah, well, that
is the trouble.
You need some kind of vetting procedure
some sort of filter.
Yeah, to enter information into the database, because you don't want to be poisoned by, false reports, etc., which could happen. It's a difficult one because there's no public money to run either an archive or a library or a database of any kind.
But there should be for something like this, because we said earlier, this is social history. Mm-hmm. These are not a catalogue of social lunatics or nutcases or people that have had too much to drink. This is important social history.
But in my opinion, John, the NSA, the National Security Agency in the United States, they know a vast amount about UFOs. The information they have is phenomenal, and I think they know pretty much what's going on with it.
Well, they must do.
But they certainly don't want public knowledge of it, in my opinion, and that's why there's never any money, research, etc., put into real sort of creating a proper archive for this information. As you say, everyone's just keeps their own and keeps it to themselves because they know that there's a conspiracy to it. I genuinely believe that some researchers cling on to it because they think it's gold dust, that they're going to get the golden nugget which gives absolute proof that there's non-human interaction.
It's not going to happen.
But
it's not going to happen because it just isn't. We've reached a stage now where even the best film in the world is useless. Mm-hmm. But because people are going to say that it's photoshopped, it's hoaxed, it's this, that. We're on a loser there as such. But the information that I'm supplying, most of it has taken place before the internet was ever brought into use. And
I do think that genetics could be used to prove some of this. That's my own view. It's something that I'm quite interested in. Because this is one of the claims of abduction, that there are
more than likely,
that throughout
the family, no doubt.
If you look at abduction, if it's occurring, and I suspect that it is and has been. I interviewed a guy called Dan Sherman, who worked at the NSA in a secret project, and they were allegedly collaborating, the NSA, with some group who did the abduction of his mother, and he had a genetic adjustment made. So, and I think that's generally what the abduction phenomenon is about. So you could use genetics to mathematically prove that there's been adjustments made. That would be you couldn't dispute it. If you couldn't, you need specific skills in that. But it's something that I'm looking into. But to get back to your books, John. Right, we're going to talk about one case from Volume 2, which took place in 1962 in Stratford upon Avon. You're going to tell us about that, John.
Right, the gentleman that brought this to my attention was John Dennis Llewellyn. He used to, as we said before, run the Stratford upon Avon UFO Society, and he had a letter from. Actually, it was Mr. Gordon Honeycomb. For those that don't remember Gordon, I think he was an ITV presenter back. Do you remember Gordon Honeycomb?
The name rings a bell. What
he
year
was a presenter in the 70s. But then he went to Australia. But he sent a letter, an interesting letter, because it's sometimes... I don't know if what they saw was a UFO. It could have been a satellite. But it's an interesting letter because he said that in July 62 they noticed a bright satellite-like object with a searchlight on top, moving slowly from the northeast. As it passed silently overhead, this is Gordon, I was able to see three lights, one orange and one green, forming a triangle in the sky. And then, as a result of an appeal made in the Stratford upon Avon Herald newspaper by John Dennis, he received a letter from Mr. Gordon Honeycomb, who was then performing at the Royal Shakespeare Theatre. And in the letter, he said, I read in Friday's Herald that you're seeking further reports of a UFO seen last Monday. He said, several of us from the theatre saw it. It would have been about 10:45 p.m. We'd come into the Duck for a meal after the Shrew and hadn't yet been served. There was about 7 of us around the table when Vanessa Redgrave came bursting in, asking us to come outside. There was something in the sky, and they all trooped outside. And she said she'd been watching this moving light for about 10 minutes. And then that was more or less it. But I tried, like many times, to get in touch with Vanessa Redgrave. But trying to get in touch with these people is, as we've discussed before, is very difficult. So it would have been nice to have had her version of events. So,
right. Okay.
Interesting story.
Vanessa Redgrave.
Vanessa Redgrave, yeah.
All right then, John. Well, we're going to go for another break and we'll discuss some more cases after this. Welcome back. I'm Richard D. Hall and I'm talking to John Hanson about his series of books entitled Haunted Skies. And these are encyclopedias charting hundreds of UFO cases from 1940 up to, well, you're up to the mid-1970s. But we're going to discuss a case from Volume 1, which took place in 1947.
That's right, yes.
Okay.
It originally came to us from a lady called Molly Tilley, and
Molly Tilley,
yeah. The lady that gave it to us is no longer with us, but she introduced us to Molly, and we interviewed Molly, and she told us a fascinating story which had been handed down by her mother, and was a source of occasional conversation in the family about what had happened in 1947. And according to Molly, it took place at a place called Fishpool Hill.
This is near Hereford.
Yeah, which is where we went and had a look at it. And it involved her uncle, Frank Hanford. And according to Molly, she said, my uncle and mother were not the sort of persons to make up wild stories. They were the exact opposites, not given to flights of imagination. My mother told me this story many times over the years and was adamant Frank was telling the truth. Certainly, Molly didn't go around making stories about aliens and UFOs, but this is what she was told. And according to her mother Betty, Frank and his housekeeper, who lived at this a farm next to an apple orchard where they sold apples to make cider, they were disturbed by dogs barking in the middle of the night. Now, I would just say that we managed to confirm that there was a Mrs. Newman at that address, and Frank, I have no idea what the relationship was, but that's as much as we know. But according to her, and according to what her mother told her, the housekeeper was disturbed by dogs barking in the middle of the night. So, fearing intruders, Frank loaded a pair of shotguns and he went out to see what was going on, because there appeared to be some activity around the apple orchard. And then he said, we saw the incredible sight of a dome-shaped craft glowing with lights descending onto the ground, and they watched as a pair of steps slowly came out of the craft, followed by the entrance of 3 silver-suited beings. These beings stood next to the spaceship, picked up some apples and a piece of turf before re-entering the ship and leaving. And I would say again that if you judge that case on its individual merits as a one-off, you'd probably be you'd be laughing your socks off, because it sounds absolutely ridiculous and unbelievable. But then when you've covered so many hundreds of other cases involving these entities that perform the most apparently stupid of tasks, you perhaps would change your mind. But anyway, the next morning, because then this thing took off, and when they went out the next morning, they discovered a large circular impression burnt into the ground and scorching to a nearby wicket gate. So Frank telephoned the police, and they arrived with men from the Air Ministry as well as military personnel. They conducted a search of the area with a Geiger counter which revealed high levels of radiation, and then they warned Frank of the dire consequences if he told anybody what had happened. And we spoke to a guy down there called Andrew Bailey, who did some research into the matter on our behalf, and he as I say, ascertained that the farmhouse was demolished in 48, and of course the electoral rolls gave those names prior to that date. So it was an interesting case. Again, the only evidence we've got is the word of Molly Tilley, who's probably passed away by now. But Molly was adamant that's what her mum told her, and her mum got that from somebody. And I mean, there was no embellishment to it. That's the great thing about these stories, if you like, if you can call them stories or reports. If somebody was going to embellish them, they would embellish them, but there's no embellishment. It is a familiar pattern of events. I mean, a few weeks ago, you met Kevin Goodman here today, and Kevin put us in touch with a guy called Lance, whose story is covered in volume 6, I think. But Lance, 77, Lance and the rest of his family saw a saucer-shaped object hovering over the garden, and the next morning it left a burnt ring into the brickwork, as well as the grass. And the family were told, had a visit, and were told not to tell anybody. And he always promised his mum he wouldn't tell anybody what had happened till his mother passed away. And his mother passed away last year. And unfortunately, Lance Caldwell, that was his name, Lance has still agreed for us to go and see him and interview him, despite the fact that a few months ago his son, Lewis, passed away from cancer, aged 10. And I just think it's important, because when I say it's important, I just think that, you know, these are people's personal lives, and we were quite touched when Lance said to us that his son, before he died, wanted to see a Doctor Who performance, and they took him there, and he met all the people on the stage. So it's quite emotional. But dealing with people sometimes can be emotional, as you know. Yeah. And I just think that was a lovely story.
So they took apples and a piece of turf.
Apples and a turf. And quite often, so many reports of these beings, because they're certainly not humans. Some people call them humanoids, but they appear to be doing something to the ground, or measuring it, or recovering pieces of turf or grass or apples or anything. For what reason, I really don't know.
Right. But they're obviously interested in the Earth's biology, ecosystem, what have you.
Maybe they're testing it or doing something with it. You see, none of this makes sense to me. We said as a police officer, without having got into this at all, I would have thought people, if you like us, I would have regarded them as crackpots. But having learnt from so many people what they've experienced, there certainly is a truth behind all of this.
If you take the analogy that it doesn't make any sense. If you just look at David Attenborough, when he goes and studies, and I've said this in the past before, he goes to study a group of gorillas. What's one thing that he makes sure of is that he tries to hide as much as he can. Yeah. Initially, you know, he won't present himself to them because he doesn't want to affect their behaviour. As soon as he presents himself in their world with a camera that they've never seen before, it then massively affects their behaviour, which is the same with us. If something alien presents itself to you, it affects your behaviour. David Attenborough wants to look at their behaviour, so he hides behind a rock and does it that way, and will take samples or take images, and we'll do things covertly. So, but because that's clearly assuming all of these volumes are genuine reports, and I'm sure a lot of them are, they clearly have a wish to remain covert. Would you go along with that, John? At least on a large scale. They're not...
they're not... You're right. They certainly don't make their presence known to us, to the majority of us. I mean, one lady wrote to me years ago, and she said, well, John, she said, what's to stop them all coming through? And you're right, I don't know what the answer to that is, but they are there, they exist, and occasionally people do see. I mean, there's so many cases. Police officer from Devon and Cornwall contacted me last year. His case is in 1968, where a lorry driver on the way into Credit and Devon stopped at the side of the crossroads, which is actually, we went up there with the retired police sergeant and managed to get hold of the police report, because this police officer had still got the report from 68 and from the lorry driver, and the lorry driver saw a saucer-shaped object in a field with figures dancing around it. And he saw that and he was terrified, and he went to Crediton police station and made a statement, and we managed to get hold of a statement, and then after a lot of problems, a photograph of the man himself, because it's important. When we first started this, we didn't bother with photographs. We thought, well, but this is photographs of people.
Of witnesses.
It's important. You couldn't do it all, because then you'd end up with about 500 volumes. But where cases are of extreme importance, such as Nigel Frapple and James Saladin, we need their photos, because what we're doing here now, hopefully people can look at in 40 or 50 years' time. And I mean, you yourself are playing your own part in this, because you're preserving the social history of all of this. Because if you don't do it and I don't do it, what do we end up with? We end up with nothing.
I'm very much dipping into it and trying to represent it through the televisual medium, whereas you're doing it through volumes of encyclopedias. So it's a different task, it's a different objective.